Hi, good morning, everybody. Well, it's morning time for us here in Hawaii. We're presenting from Hawaii, so it's only 10 o'clock, 10:10 here. Not sure where everybody else is, but good morning from us. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Lauren Prepose-Forsen, and I am a transfer counselor specialist for the University of Hawaii, Manoa, and my colleague is here with me presenting today.
Aloha everyone, my name is Nicole Mitani. I am from Honolulu Community College, an academic counselor for liberal arts, Hawaiian studies, and natural science.
So today we're just going to jump right into our little workshop presentation. We do want to just ask if you guys can hold your questions till the end of the presentation instead of trying to put it in the chat. Maybe just jot it down and then ask towards the end. And if there's nothing else really, no other housekeeping concerns at this point. So we're just going to go ahead and begin. So again, our presentation is listening to the voices of our transfer students in order to create meaningful initiatives. Right. So we just kind of wanted to start by having a little bit of context to our presentation in terms of how the University of Hawaii system is set up. So UH has 10 campuses across 4 islands, and we have 2 satellite centers on our smaller islands, Lanai and Molokai. You can see the map here. There are 3 four-year campuses, University of Hawaii Manoa, University of Hawaii Hilo, and then University of Hawaii West Oahu. And we also have 7 community colleges. So we have 4 community colleges on our main island here on Oahu. And then we have 1 community college here on Kauai. We have Maui College here, and then we have Hawaii's Community College here on Hawaii Island. So although we are one whole system, we are extremely geographically separated from each other, which can cause some issues sometimes. So here, we just wanted to give you a snapshot of the University of Hawaii at Manoa, which is our flagship campus and the campus that I work for and help students transfer to. So as you can see, UH Manoa has about 18,000 students, and most of them are in-state or residents, while about 30% are non-resident and 6% are international students. So in 2020, transfer students at UH Manoa made up about 40% of the degree-seeking undergraduate student population. So a good amount of our students at UH Manoa are actually transfer students. Among all new undergraduate transfers to UH Manoa in fall 2020, 40% came from our UH community colleges. So they are within our system. And then as you can see from this chart, Kapiolani Community College and Leeward Community College have the most students that transfer to UH Manoa, followed by Windward Community College. So it's kind of interesting to note by this graph that the number of students that are transferring in from each of our community college campuses has remained pretty much stagnant, the same. It hasn't really increased. And I think that's where we struggle as a system, is kind of trying to figure out how to increase the number of transfer students from each of our CCs, particularly our smaller campuses like Kauai Community College or Hawaii Community College. So I'm sure all of you know that transfer students are the largest higher education segment. It has become the norm for undergraduate students because for many it is more convenient and affordable to start at a community college and then transfer to a 4-year institution. And most students enroll with the intent to transfer. However, only a small percentage of them are actually making that leap. And the data here supports that. This is by the Aspen Institute, and it's consistent with Jenkins and Fink's research that showed that even though 80% of community college students intend to earn a bachelor's degree, only 17% complete within 6 years. So what's holding our transfer students back? Clearly, there are institutional barriers like credit loss or delayed admission notifications. There are social emotional barriers. I don't know how many students have told me that they are scared to transfer because they don't think that they can succeed at the four-year university or at UH Manoa. There's a lot of fear, anxiety, and confusion. And then there are other types of barriers such as lack of academic preparedness and what is called catastrophic disturbances. So in the field of ecology, catastrophic disturbances are minor disturbances or small changes that can upset a whole ecosystem over time. So for community college students, seemingly minor hurdles or barriers along the way, like missing a deadline or difficulty with the application or failure to get a passing grade in a prerequisite course, may cause that student to just give up on transferring altogether. So there are a lot of barriers in place. And so knowing that these barriers exist for transfer students in general, we wanted to kind of find out what, if any, are the most prevalent barriers for our specific population of transfer students here in Hawaii, and particularly for our UH system community college students. So Nicole will talk about other student panels that she put together, but the intent of it wasn't to collect data per se. It was really to have an opportunity for students who are about to embark on the transfer process to hear about the transfer experience from students who had already transferred to UH Manoa. But really what came out of the panels was qualitative data that we looked through and tried to figure out how we could best address the concerns and issues to serve our transfer students. And we'll talk about what we found and that qualitative data later on in the presentation. But now Nicole will go ahead and provide an overview about how she kind of created these panels.
Thank you, Lauren. So we came up with the idea, like Lauren has said, because we wanted the intent to actually have our students hear from other students who actually went through the process of transferring. But some of the background ideas of how we got started was Honolulu Community College was part of achieving, or is part of achieving the dream. So I attended a conference breakout session in February 2020 called Student Voices. And that resonated with me because that helped me to understand, hey, maybe we should put on this workshop for other students to hear from other students rather than from faculty or academic counselors. Also, Honolulu Community College's strategic plan, as well as UH Manoa's strategic plan, included transfer benchmarks. And I do want to note that since fall 2016, Honolulu Community College has not met our transfer benchmark goals ever since 2016. So that is something that we struggle with as a challenge, and we're trying to figure out how to address that. So we thought, hey, maybe a workshop style would help in getting some panel students to share their experiences. And then lastly, our University of Hawaii system did a transfer study. One of the members was the Dean of Student Services from Honolulu Community College. So she was my dean, and she was a co-leader in this study, and she supported a lot of transfer student work and the importance of having student feedback. So part of the logistics is getting recruitment of former transfer students. So basically I created a list of students myself. I started normally with people or students that I have worked with since I work with a lot of transfer students, and then kind of remembering their names and jotting that down on a list. And then highlighting those that had challenges with school, with college. So it was not just the good ones, but also looking at those that had some ups and downs in their journey. And then I also asked Lauren for help in providing names, student names to put on the list that she has worked with as well. And then I also ran a report in STAR. So STAR is basically our student registration system. So I had access to run reports of students that graduated and transferred at least for one semester at Manoa. And so that helped me to add on more names. And then I also asked other advisors and counselors in my department if they had potential students that would be good panelists as well. So gathering lots of different names and then compiling a list together. Okay, and then when I finally had that list, which was possibly about 10 or more students, I sent an email invitation out. This was during the pandemic when it first started. So email is best to communicate with them, especially since they were at the four-year university at Manoa. And so here's a copy of the template. It says, "Aloha. I am working on hosting a transfer student panel at Honolulu Community College, and I'm kindly asking if you would like to participate and be part of this panel. There will be a set of questions given to you prior to the workshop, and all the questions will pertain to your experience with the transfer process from Honolulu Community College to Manoa. Your voice will be valuable to faculty, staff, and other students to learn about your experiences and how the campus can improve its transfer efforts. If you are interested, please email me back. Hope to hear from you soon." So the intent of this was to invite them to be part of the panel, but also I did include things like why. So your voice is valuable, why it's important for you to participate, and letting them know ahead of time that there was going to be a set of questions to help them prepare so they weren't nervous, because we do need to keep in mind that these are students as well. They're not professionals, and so that was part of the template that we sent out. After I sent that out, the panelists did confirm whether they wanted to participate or not. And so I jotted that down. I sent a doodle poll to schedule a workshop date and time with participating students. So we've done this for about 3 semesters. The first semester, I asked them their availability. We had the intent of already setting 1 hour for this workshop, and the location was going to be virtual because of the COVID pandemic. We started in spring 2020 with the intent of having it in person, but we had to shift to virtual. And then the challenge was finding a day and time for all of them, or all of the panelists that wanted to participate, to be available at the same day and time. So like I said, I chose, there were times where I chose the date and time of the workshop based on the panel. And then there were other times where I had them do the doodle poll and then set the date and time on their availability. So there's pros and cons to what works and what doesn't work. And then once I did that and I had everything set, I communicated with them the date and time and sent out the Zoom invitation links. I also sent out consent waivers for them to be recorded because they are students, and asked if we could use their testimonials to be used in presentations or data, etc. And all of them said yes and provided the forms back to me. And then I sent the panelists questions ahead of time, and we'll go over what the questions included in a later slide. I sent them email reminders a week prior to the workshop because we all know that they're very busy. So just reminders, and that was very helpful for them to kind of make sure that they didn't miss it. And then another key piece was partnering with our TRIO program at Honolulu Community College to help coordinate the workshop. So basically TRIO managed the marketing and recruitment and registration of the workshops for our students. We didn't that kind of took a load off of us. So they kind of took care of the flyers and putting it digitally on their websites. And then I also sent announcements and invitations to them to send out to different departments on campus and student services on campus that work with transfer students to be invited to attend so that they can hear our presentation or our panelists. Okay, and then our panelists consisted of different students, but some students were also repeat. So like I said, we started in spring 2020 at the height of the pandemic, and because of the lockdown, we had intended it to be in person, but we had to shift to virtually. So I was only able to get two female students, because everybody was kind of in a fluster of trying to move to online classes. So one student was in human development major and another one was a history major. And both of them transferred to UH Manoa, one in fall 2019 and one in fall 2017. And then the next semester, we held it virtually again, 2 females and 1 male. So it was nice to have a different perspective with a male. There were human development majors, nursing and social work. And the male was a social work major. And they transferred at different times in fall 2019, fall 2018, and spring 2019. So it was kind of a good mixture of fall versus spring semesters. And then in spring 2021, we had 4 students, 3 females, 1 male. Some of these were repeat panelists from human development, and 2 were human development, 2 were social work. Transferred in fall, 2 of them in fall 2019 to UH Manoa, 1 in fall 2016 and 1 in spring 2019. So things I want to notate were that these are not all student workers or student government leaders. I've been to other workshops that had student panelists, and they were all from student government or student workers on campus. We wanted to capture regular students who just had everyday lives and had work outside of on campus and weren't really that involved. So they were just regular students. Some of the limitations of these panelists were that we didn't get a variety of majors represented. That's always hard. It depends on who's willing to present. So target-wise, it was hard to have specific majors unless you actually work with one set of major or a population of students. I've said before, a limitation was that we had repeat panelists, so the data wasn't necessarily unique. But because it was more of the intent of other students hearing them, the repeat was kind of okay because they were each attendance of students was very different. And another limitation was that the panel consisted only of Honolulu Community College students and not other community college students in our University of Hawaii system. So the feedback may be a little bit different depending on what community college they were from. So this is specifically only for Honolulu Community College. Okay, and Lauren will talk about our questions. Oh, Lauren, you're muted.
Thanks. Sorry. The 4 questions that we put forth to our panel are listed right here. And then with each question, the answers from the panelists were analyzed and certain themes came up. So the first one was, what challenges did you encounter when transferring? So emotional barriers, feeling scared of starting at a new place, financial hardships, lack of support. My parents didn't understand why I wanted to transfer and obtain a higher degree, lack of knowledge about UH Manoa's policies and procedures, and then misadvising. So if you look at these themes, none of them are really surprising, but they are in line with the barriers we went over previously. But it did tell us what our students struggled with the most and the areas that we could maybe target discussions or workshops for our transfer students. Second question, what or who was helpful when transferring? It was people who were knowledgeable and cared, as an example, academic advisors, support programs, planning ahead, and peer support. So they said people who were knowledgeable and who cared. So again, we can't stress enough how important we, as academic advisors or people who are focused on transfer students, are so important to their journey. One student actually noted that a nice lady in the business office at UH Manoa was helpful. And so this really made sense. I read a quote from an article, and it basically said that the interactions that prospective students have with staff is significant because students use these as indicators of whether or not they will feel supported or welcomed on a campus. So again, as advisors or people who are working with students on the front line, they're going to take their first impression from whoever they're working with, and that's going to be what their first impression is of the campus. So luckily, that student had a good interaction with that business office individual. Next question, what or who was helpful when transferring? What tips would you give faculty or staff to improve the transfer process? So we thought this one was interesting, is provide opportunities for students to connect. I guess it makes a difference having someone who has experience transferring. So kind of like the panel example, career or major exploration, discuss emotional and mental concerns about transferring, encourage students to use their resources, and then have some kind of program to understand all of this. That I thought was kind of interesting comment. And then last question, what tips would you give to potential transfer students? Don't be afraid to ask for help, build relationships with your advisors, professors, and peers, get involved at UH Manoa, check your email. I don't know how many times we tell our students to check their email. Plan ahead and understand your UH Manoa degree requirements and utilize your resources. So we kind of looked at this and we thought about it. We took, some time to discuss it, and we tried to figure out how to meet these needs of our students. How do we create opportunities for them to interact with peers? How do we get them to plan ahead and to understand degree requirements? How do we address or prepare them for the financial piece of attending a four-year institution? And that's kind of when we decided to create a transfer seminar course, which addressed all of these concerns over one semester prior, or maybe 2 semesters prior to when that student was actually planning to transfer.
Okay, so what we do with the feedback and data? So it wasn't, like Lauren had mentioned, the intent was really for other students to hear their experience, but for us as counselors and advisors, it was really valuable data that came out. And so rather than just leaving it as that, we wanted to make sure that we did something with it. So we shared the data with our colleagues, including our academic counselors, the Dean of Student Services at Honolulu Community College, the Liberal Arts Dean at Honolulu Community College, and then the Manoa Transfer Specialist that Lauren is part of. We also met to discuss feedback and brainstorm ideas. So me and Lauren had a really close relationship, really strong work relationship that bonded us together after this to realize what our students are saying. And so that helped us to kind of brainstorm and figure out what to do. And that's where the transfer seminar course was created. It's called IS 100, UH Manoa Transfer Seminar Course, and it is offered as 1 credit. We do want to note that this course is open to all University of Hawaii Community College students, since it's an online course in a synchronous format. So it's not just Honolulu Community College students that can take it. Okay, as I mentioned, this is a 1 credit course. It is actually taught at Honolulu Community College. A lot of the transfer seminar courses that I know of are taught at the four-year universities. And we kind of had, Lauren and I had discussed about the fact that it might be helpful to have it at a community college and to prepare them before they transfer, to go over a lot of things that they need to know prior to transferring, not once they land at UH Manoa. So we kind of do it virtually via Zoom. We spent fall 2021 summer trying to build a curriculum for the course. We teach it once a week on Mondays for an hour and 15 minutes. Our homework assignments vary. So we do have them do reflection papers, a few quizzes, worksheets, and discussion polls. So it's a variety of things. And our curriculum is based upon these bullet points. So decision making, so review and discuss various decision making models. For example, we go over planned happenstance theory and how that kind of works in choosing a major or the decision to actually transfer for a bachelor degree after the community colleges. Self-assessments, we discuss their interests, their goals, skills, values, and how it relates to their career and major goals. We do an overview of the transfer process and steps, and that's really going over the entire process from starting at Honolulu Community College all the way until they start their first semester at UH Manoa, and all the important things they should do while at the community college, so emphasizing the community college aspect. We go over the UH Manoa historical context, which is important, especially in the Native Hawaiian historical aspects. So we have a guest speaker that comes in to talk about Manoa, UH Manoa as a Hawaiian place of learning. And that's really important and a strategic goal for our UH system. Understanding degrees and deciphering acronyms. A lot of times we use different acronyms in academic counseling and advising, not having our students really understand what that is in their language, in their terms. So we do go over those kinds of acronyms and understanding the basic structure of UH Manoa at a four-year institution and how that's different at the community college. We go over major exploration. So we review different career websites like ONET. We teach them how to use it, how to do exploration with UH Manoa's websites and their curriculum program sheets. We teach them how to calculate their GPA and why it's important, why your GPA is important. We go over psychological adjustment. So I think one of the feedback that Lauren had mentioned from the students was that mental health aspect. So we do embed that psychological adjustment and include transfer shock theory, Schlossberg's transition theory, growth mindset, and grit. We embed financial aid in there. So we have a UH Manoa financial aid specialist or advisor come and speak to the class. And then we also incorporate academic advising from UH Manoa's advisors. So we have them come in as guest speakers and meet with our students individually or as a group if there are more than one student interested in that particular major. And we have them do advising beforehand, before they get to the four-year campus. We talk about different campus resources at UH Manoa. So right now, currently, because of the pandemic, we have them do a virtual campus scavenger hunt. The intent later on is to actually have them do an actual campus tour physically when it's a little bit safer for us to return in person. We do talk about campus involvement and how that helps. So we invite colleagues from different programs like honors programs, student life and development, undergraduate research office to do panels with our students and to talk to them about their programs and services and how to get involved. And then we also embed that transfer student panel into this course. So it's a captured audience that helps them learn from other student experiences.
Right. Here's our pre and post survey results. And the survey questions were basically based off of our student learning outcomes. The pre-test had 9 responses and the post-test had 7 responses. And that's because a couple of students had dropped the class in our first, when we taught it last semester in the fall. So if you can look at the data here, I know how to apply the steps in decision-making to my educational choices. There is a vast improvement there. I understand how assessments can relate to my major educational opportunities. Again, improvement. I know how to create an action plan regarding my transfer goal. So it's improvement, but still, I would hope that this is higher. We'd like that to be a higher percentage. I know UH Manoa's cultural and historical background. So this is, I mean, they didn't have any background on it, but then when they left the class, they understood a little bit more about it. I can identify 5 or more UH Manoa campus resources. A lot of them couldn't identify any, but then when they left, a lot of them could. And I have built strong relationships with peers who plan to transfer to UH Manoa. That's 0%. 57%, it's an improvement, but I think that's an area that Nicole and I are going to try and talk about and see how we can improve that. And then I know the overall transfer process from HCC to UH Manoa. So obviously it's 0, and then that was a big improvement. So in the open-ended questions, what was the most helpful topics covered in class? The transfer process discussion, financial aid, and meeting with faculty within our majors. So they really liked it when people from UH Manoa came to talk to the class. I think that made them feel important. It made them feel like they were welcome, that, we as a university wanted them to come. So I think that was really good that we incorporated that into the class. I liked learning about the KEAA program. KEAA program is a transfer program that I manage. They thought it was nice to know who to talk to when they needed help. And the most helpful topic covered was the major exploration. So what suggestions do you have to improve this class? More class interaction. So I think this more class interaction really goes hand in hand also with the fact that they didn't feel like they bonded with their peers in the class. So again, Nicole and I need to go back and brainstorm on how we can make that better. Maybe students can create a vision board at the start of the semester. And then an on-campus excursion would be exciting. And so this is something that, yes, pre-COVID would have been pretty easy to plan, but because we weren't fully open, it wasn't as easy to plan. So maybe in the future, we could have that incorporated into the class instead of having like a virtual scavenger hunt type of thing. And then would you recommend this class to other students? And 6 of them said yes. So. All right. So our plans for the future is to evaluate the course and make improvements as needed. We would really like to track the students who took the course to determine if the course was helpful in their transition. So maybe contacting them after they've transferred and had 1 semester at UH Manoa, or maybe during their first semester at UH Manoa, to see if the course actually helped them with that transition. And obviously the course, from our feedback from last semester, seemed positive. So we continue to offer the course and we're teaching it again this semester as well. We'd like to continue to offer the student panel workshops and continue to evaluate and analyze the feedback. And some of the other initiatives that Nicole and I have talked about would be like a peer mentoring program. So having students that had transferred from a specific community college that are already at UH Manoa, and have them paired up with somebody who's about to transfer that's in their major. So something like that, if we could get going, I think would be good to see how that would work. We would also like to obtain funding to offer the class to students for free. It's a 1 credit class, so sometimes it's a hard sell because it's 1 credit. And then if students are paying for it out of pocket, sometimes they don't feel like it's worth it, I guess. So maybe if we're able to, offer it for free, we would get more students to register for the class. And then advocate for more transfer student scholarship opportunities. I'm not sure if other institutions struggle with that, but We definitely don't have as many scholarships for transfer students as we do for like first-time freshmen population.
So tips and takeaways for your campus is if you feel like student panels would be helpful on your campus, number one is look at your student list of who you can ask to be on a panel. That's kind of step one. Where can you obtain your list from? Like for me, I had access to our student system database where I could pull reports on who actually graduated from our community college to UH Manoa. Reflect on some of the students that you have worked with, even the not so good relationships. I think the not so good experiences has really power to what they say on their challenges, and that's what other students want to hear. That's what we also want to hear so that we can figure out how to improve our transfer pipeline. Have a variety of majors if you are a generalist counselor or advisor, and if you're specifically dealing with engineering or nursing or education or whatever major, then that's also fine to just keep it at your major. Try to have different panelists and not repeat panelists for data purposes if that's your intention. But if it's just, peer-to-peer, student to student, having panelists of the same repeat panelists is also fine. So that students are also hearing from them, because there's going to be a lot of different students. Communication method, obviously because of the pandemic, we had no choice but to do email. Some schools use like text messaging systems like Signal Vine. So what is the best way to communicate to the panelists? And then talking about the panel itself, like just the logistics, like do you want a workshop style? Do you want a focus group style? Who can you partner with on your campus? So like we had shared, we partnered with Trio. Do you want to partner with other student life events happening to gain more student traffic? Do you want it live, Zoom, recorded, all those kinds of things? When, how often, and length. So for us, we do it every semester, once a semester, because the students are very busy. And then we also record it so that we can, if some students really want to participate, but it doesn't work out with their schedule, we ask them, is it okay if we can play, parts of the recording? It's the same set of questions that they had used prior, and then they had said yes. Do you set the date and time of the workshop or panel in the invitation email or after the panelists provide availability? And that was a pro and con that I talked about previously. Do you go by the student panelist availability or do you have it set already and whoever can make it will make it? Be cautious of the number of panelists. Ours was pretty small. So we were able to go through 5 or 6 questions in 1 hour, but be careful because the more panelists you have, you may need to either cut their time or provide more time for the overall workshop to get all the questions in. And then come up with what questions do you want to ask students? What do your students want to know? What do you want to know as academic counselors and advisors that might be helpful? And then also think about your audience. Like for us, the intention was for students only, but we also did invite other departments that worked with transfer students, student services. And do you want to do one separately just for faculty and staff and administrators for them to be educated on what the transfer experience is like? Student incentives, are you going to be asking these panelists but giving them incentives to participate? So for us, we didn't have anything. We don't have a budget. Hawaii is expensive as it is. So we just kind of told them, if you need letters of recommendations, we'll send that to you and you can reference that for anything that you want. But basically, a lot of the students that we asked wanted to provide their experiences. and had no problem with it if it was going to benefit other students. And lastly, another tip is to figure out what you want to do with the feedback. For us, we did something about it. It's not like we just collected the data and here it is. Lauren and I sat down and decided, okay, what are some low-hanging fruit that we can try and put into action. Okay. So with that, we would be open to connecting with you folks if you had any questions after today. If you wanted to get more in-depth information, here is our contact information. And now we will open up for, and here's our reference page that we use in terms of resources. So we wanted to open it up now for questions. I do see in the chat here. Okay, do you have any data on later success of these students? How are you tracking them after the class? So as Lauren mentioned, we are going to track them. We just started one full semester last semester in fall 2021. A lot of the students that took the class are not ready to transfer. They're actually going to be transferring in spring. So Lauren and I are still in contact with some of them and are working with them to fully transfer. And then we plan to track them one semester after while they're at UH Manoa. Lauren, do you want to add anything?
Nope, we just started this, so we have to kind of wait until we have students that actually make that leap. And we're hoping all of the ones that were in our class last semester will actually follow through and transfer over. I think there might be one out of that class that's actually transferring there for the upcoming fall. So we will be able to touch base with him and maybe send him some kind of survey. We haven't really talked about that yet to see what we want to assess about his transition.
Yeah, and the intent of the class is not, we try to capture students who are not like ready to go in that final semester. We try to capture them like in their second semester, in the third semester, so that they have this kind of knowledge to prepare them before they transfer. Oftentimes we found that if they kind of take the class in their last semester at the community college and then transfer right after, they kind of missed some steps and they're like, oh, that might not be useful now for them to know. Because we've had comments before like, oh, that would have been nice to know beforehand. So we try to recruit all different types of students, whether they're brand new incoming students that know they actually want to transfer to UH Manoa, but that's like maybe 1 or 2 years down the road. We still have them take it so that it's useful information that they have beforehand. So thank you for that question. How many weeks is the course? Do students pay for the course? So the actual course is, because it's only 1 credit, it's actually a full semester, 16 weeks, but we only meet once a week for about an hour. And that's plenty of time for us to embed all those types of curriculum topics into our course. Yes, students pay for the course. We try to capture students who are on financial aid, veterans benefits, so they don't pay out of pocket. It is transferable to UH Manoa as a 1 credit elective, and it does count for their liberal arts degree requirements for Honolulu Community College. So it does count for something, and that's why financial aid and VA benefits will pay for it. We do have some students who are paying out of pocket, and we do tell them the price of this 1 credit course. And this semester, we have some students who are still interested and are willing to pay out of pocket. Our goal that Lauren mentioned is to look for sources of funding so that the class can be free. Any other questions? You guys can unmute yourself as well.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. I was just, well, it's more a question and a comment. Is there a reason are you allowed to teach the class for free and like not make it a credit class, or does it have to be a credit class?
We wanted it for credit just because the students, we embed a lot of the assignments and things like that for assessment purposes. So we wanted it as a 1 credit. We had like introduction to college courses in the summer that were free for students in our University of Hawaii system, but that was through a national or larger grant. So I mean, that's our next step, is for Lauren and I to kind of take a look at what options we have in terms of the cost. I mean, I'm sure students would be a little bit more inclined to take it if it was free.
The only reason I bring it up is because in the city colleges of Chicago, we teach something called the transfer leadership class, and it's a 6-week free class for community college students. But the only difference is it's not just to transfer to one university. They can go anywhere they want, but it's a transfer class, and we have really high engagement. It's on Zoom, so that removes a lot of the barriers. But anyway, I would love to connect with both of you and chat about our courses.
Sure, we would love to hear from you as well.
Cool. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Any other questions? We have about 3 minutes left. Okay, well, if there's no other questions, we do thank you for attending our presentation. We hope you learned something from it. So thank you for your time. And if you want to connect with us, yes, please contact us via email. And we'll be able to. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Please fill out the evaluation.
Oh, yes. Please go in the app and fill out our evaluation. Mahalo, everybody.